I always thought working as a park ranger would be peaceful. Early mornings, the smell of pine trees, the call of birds overhead, and the soothing silence of untouched nature. When I got the offer to work at Ashwood National Park, I didn't hesitate. It was remote, beautiful, and exactly what I thought I needed. What I didn't expect was the list of rules handed to me on my first day, or how deadly they'd turn out to be. My supervisor, an older man with a thick beard and a voice like gravel, didn't give me the standard welcome tour. Instead, he dropped a small notebook into my hand with a dull thud. "These are the rules," he said flatly. "You follow them. You don't ask questions. That's how you survive here." I thought he was joking. I really did. The park looked so normal. Majestic mountains, crystal lakes, dense woods that seemed more tranquil than threatening. But something about the way he looked at me made my stomach twist. The notebook had just 7 lines. 1. Never be outside after 11:17 p.m. 2. If you see the watcher in the trees, do not run. 3. Do not acknowledge voices calling your name near the hollow. 4. If the lake turns black, stay inside and lock all doors. 5. Patrol cabin 6 every night, even if no one's assigned there. 6. Never speak to the children in blue. 7. If you hear whistling, close your eyes until it stops. No explanations. No context. Just those 7 chilling sentences. I chuckled nervously and asked if it was some kind of hazing ritual. The supervisor didn't even blink. "You'll understand soon enough," he said, and walked away. That first day, I explored the grounds. Ashwood was beautiful, like a postcard version of wilderness. Lush pine forests rolled over the hills, the air was crisp, and a scent of sap and soil lingered in the breeze. But as dusk fell, the forest seemed to shift. The silence became too silent. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. At 10:50 p.m., I returned to the Ranger Lodge and sat near the fireplace, flipping through the notebook again. 11:17. What an oddly specific time. I stayed up just to prove to myself how silly it was. The moment the clock struck 11:17, something shifted. The warmth of the lodge disappeared. The fire dimmed, as if smothered by an invisible hand. Outside, a low hum began to rise, vibrating through the floorboards like a warning. I approached the window and saw nothing but darkness. Not the kind the moon hides behind clouds, but something deeper, ***, a void ***, that swallowed everything. Then I heard footsteps. Soft. Deliberate. Pacing just outside. I froze, trying to convince myself it was just another ranger. But the lodge was supposed to be empty. The footsteps stopped. Then came a tap at the window. Just once. Delicate. Measured. I dared to look. There was nothing there. But I could feel it watching me. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, the forest was bright and serene again, as if the night hadn't happened. I tried to shake the feeling, brushing it off as exhaustion. But then I met Ranger Miles. He was young, around my age, and had a haunted look in his eyes that no cheerful weather could erase. "You stayed in the lodge last night?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Why?" He swallowed hard. "You made it past 11:17? I nodded slowly. "You're lucky. Most rookies don't." He didn't elaborate. That evening, I was assigned to check the perimeter near the hollow. It was a natural sinkhole deep in the woods, surrounded by leaning trees that looked like they were bowing to something beneath the earth. The air was heavier there, and sound didn't carry the same. As I approached the edge, I heard it, my name. Ethan. Soft. Familiar. I turned. No one. Then again, closer this time. "Ethan, help me." My heart jumped. It sounded like my sister's voice. But that was impossible. She was hundreds of miles away. I remembered Rule 3. Do not acknowledge voices calling your name near the hollow. The temptation was unbearable. The voice sounded exactly like her. Broken. Pleading. "Ethan, please. I'm cold." I squeezed my eyes shut and turned back toward the trail. My legs trembled, and every instinct screamed at me to answer, to look, to help. But I didn't. I kept walking, each step heavier than the last. That night, I told Miles what happened. His expression didn't change. You did the right thing. They use memories. Sounds you trust. But they're not real. They're what lives down there. I asked him what they were. He just shook his head. You don't want to know. You only need to survive. The next night, I was told to patrol cabin 6. There was no ranger assigned to it. In fact, most of the others acted like it didn't exist. It sat deep in the woods, far from the others, shrouded by overgrowth and shadows. The door creaked when I opened it. Inside, it was coated in dust, cobwebs, and a smell that reminded me of wet soil and rusted metal. But what disturbed me most was the crib in the corner. A wooden crib. Old, splintered, and empty. That night, as I stood in the cabin, the temperature dropped. A soft lullaby echoed from nowhere, played on some music box I couldn't see. I turned to leave, heart racing, but the door slammed shut on its own. I backed away and stared at the door, reaching slowly for my flashlight. That's when I noticed the mirror across the room. In its reflection, the crib was not empty. A child sat there, unmoving. Its eyes were wide and black, mouth slightly open. It stared directly at me through the mirror. But when I turned around, nothing. I didn't stay long after that. The next morning, I confronted the supervisor. Demanded answers. He handed me a folder, yellowed, brittle with age. Inside were photos, reports, incidents that had occurred over the last 50 years. Vanished hikers. Rangers found dead inside locked cabins. Eyewitness accounts of children in blue uniforms leading guests into the woods, never to return. Entire search teams swallowed by the lake during black water events. Everything in those rules, he said, is written in blood. I tried to quit that day. But he just looked at me with tired eyes and said, "You've seen too much. You belong to this place now." I didn't believe him then. But now I do. Because the forest, it doesn't let go. And the deeper I go, the more I realize, these rules aren't for protecting us from the forest. They're for protecting the forest from us. They say the forest never forgets, and I'm beginning to believe it. The more time I spent in Ashwood National Park, the more I began to realize that it wasn't just a stretch of untouched wilderness. It was something alive. And not just in the poetic way people describe nature as breathing or watching. Ashwood watched in the most literal way possible. You didn't walk through it, you trespassed. After my second week, the rules no longer felt like folklore. They were gospel. Rule 2 haunted me the most. If you see the watcher in the trees, do not run. I asked Miles about it again. He refused to speak at first, but that night, after a few too many swigs of bitter canned beer, he finally talked. The watcher doesn't move when you look at it, he said. Only when you turn your back. What is it? Something that isn't supposed to be seen. Something waiting. I didn't press him further. But fate didn't wait for me to understand. It threw me into the fire. It was a Tuesday night. Cold, clear skies, the moon a perfect silver disk above the peaks. I was sent to clear a fallen tree from one of the northern trails. Standard patrol. I parked the ATV, grabbed my flashlight and axe, and started down the path. About 30 minutes in, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. Movement. Subtle. High in the trees. I lifted my light. There it was. Just beyond the reach of my beam, nestled between the branches of a pine tree, asterisk asterisk a shape asterisk asterisk. Long limbs. Thin, too thin. Pale skin. Eyes like hollow lanterns glowing dimly in the dark. It wasn't moving. It was just staring. I couldn't breathe. Its head tilted slowly, like a curious bird, and I felt its gaze crawl across my skin. The temptation to run was overwhelming. Every instinct screamed at me to get out, to sprint back to the ATV and floor it until I was back at the lodge. But I remembered Rule 2. Do not run. So I didn't. Instead, I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I sat down. Right there in the middle of the path. My flashlight trembled in my hands. My breath fogged in front of me, sharp and fast. I kept my eyes fixed on it. It didn't move. For nearly an hour, I sat there, frozen. Every time I blinked, my heart leapt, afraid it would vanish, or worse, asterisk asterisk move asterisk asterisk. Finally, the wind shifted, and the shape faded into the shadows. I waited a full 5 minutes before daring to move. Even then, I walked backward the entire way, eyes scanning the trees, axe clutched tightly in my hand. When I returned to the station, I told Miles what happened. He looked horrified. "You saw it and lived?" I nodded. "Then you're marked." "Marked?" He leaned closer, whispering. "The Watcher knows you now. It won't forget your scent. You'll see it again." That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, a tourist went missing. A solo hiker, young, fit, experienced. We found her backpack near the hollow, torn open. Her camera still inside. When we checked the photos, the last picture made my blood freeze. It was taken at night. The hollow in the background. And in the trees, barely visible, was that same pale shape. Watching. The search went on for 2 weeks. No body. No trace. Just the photo. And the forest remained silent. The park's remoteness began to feel suffocating. There was no cell service, no Wi-Fi. The nearest town was an hour's drive down winding mountain roads. I started to feel like the outside world was just a dream I had once, and this place, this cursed, breathing wilderness, was reality. Then came the lake. Rule 4, if the lake turns black, stay inside and lock all doors. It seemed so absurd when I first read it. How could a lake turn black? Until it did. It was a sunny afternoon, and I had just finished checking the main trail loop when a call came in over the ranger radio. It was garbled, full of static, but one word came through clearly. Lake. I raced down to the shore. A few other rangers were already there, silent and pale-faced. The water was black. Not murky. Not dirty. But pitch, obsidian black. As if ink had been poured into it. No reflections. No ripples. Still. Wrong. Miles arrived behind me, out of breath. "We need to go. Now." "But what is?" "Go." We all returned to the lodge. Every door was locked. Every window sealed. We sat in silence as the sun dipped below the trees. The moment dusk hit, the air changed. It was like a pressure system collapsed. The walls creaked. The floor groaned. And then came the noises. Splashing. Outside, by the shore. Then, tapping. Not at the door. At the windows. All of them. Like knuckles. Rhythmless and slow. I peered through a slit in the curtain. What I saw nearly made me scream. Bodies. Pale, bloated, waterlogged. Standing on the shoreline. Staring up at the lodge. Some were missing chunks of flesh. Some had gaping holes where eyes should be. And one of them, God help me, looked just like the missing hiker. The one from the photo. She raised her hand and pointed at the lodge. I dropped to the floor, heart racing. "They can't come in," Miles whispered. "Not unless invited. Not unless the door is opened." All night they stood there. By morning they were gone. The lake was clear again. Sparkling. Beautiful. A new group of tourists arrived that day, smiling, eager to take photos and hike the trails. No one warned them. No one ever does. That's how the park works. It's not just a place. It's a trap. A living maze. A predator that lures in prey and plays by its own rules. And worst of all, some of the rangers know more than they're telling. I started noticing things. Whispers behind closed doors. Files that disappeared from the logbooks. Miles avoiding my questions. I found old maps, different from the ones we gave visitors. They showed trails that weren't on any official documents. Symbols etched in red near certain areas. The hollow. The lake. Cabin 6. A cave system in the east no one ever mentioned. I confronted the supervisor again. He sighed. "Most rangers don't make it past the first month," he said. "You're different. The forest is watching you." "Why me?" "Because you're not afraid yet. Not enough. What happens if I break a rule?" He looked me dead in the eyes. "You won't have the chance to make that mistake twice." I left his office shaken. That night, I heard it again. Whistling. Soft. Far away at first. Then closer. Rule 7. If you hear whistling, close your eyes until it stops. I turned off the lights. Sat on the floor. Closed my eyes. It grew louder. Just outside the cabin now. Then by the window. The tune was almost familiar. Something from childhood. A lullaby, maybe. It made my skin crawl. Something brushed the door. Then silence. I opened my eyes. There, on the floor beneath the window, was a wet footprint. Not mine. I don't know how much longer I can survive this place. The rules help, but they're not enough. There are things out here older than memory, hungrier than death. And I'm starting to think the real reason we're given these rules is because someone broke them first. After that night, the whistling, the footprint, I stopped sleeping. It wasn't insomnia in the usual sense. It was self-preservation. Closing my eyes felt like a gamble, and in Ashwood National Park, the house always wins. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle outside my window kept me frozen in bed, gripping a flashlight like it could fend off whatever was clawing at the edges of this place. But sleep deprivation brings its own horrors. By day 5 without rest, I was seeing things I wasn't sure were real. Shadows darted behind trees. Branches moved without wind. My own reflection in the window blinked at a different time than I did. I started keeping the notebook, the one with the rules, clutched to my chest like some holy relic. I flipped through its worn pages, hoping maybe I'd missed something. A detail. A clue. Something to make this madness make sense. And then I noticed it. A new line. In a slightly different handwriting than the rest. Don't go near the cave when the birds stop singing. Asterisk asterisk. There had only ever been 7 rules. That was the whole deal. 7. 7 deadly rules. Now there was an 8th. I rushed to Miles with the notebook. "Did you write this?" I demanded, jabbing my finger at the new rule. He went pale. "No one adds to the list," he whispered. "Not unless." "Unless what?" He licked his lips. "Unless the forest adds it for you." That was when I noticed something else. Beneath the new rule, barely visible, a faint scrawl, almost erased, "It's waking up." I didn't ask what it meant. Deep down, I already knew. The caves weren't something we talked about. They weren't marked on any of the visitor maps. Even the official trail guides mentioned only impassable terrain in the southeast quadrant. But I'd seen the old ranger maps, the ones buried in the back of the archives, and I knew exactly where to look. I set out at dawn, hoping to be back before sundown. I didn't tell Miles. I didn't even radio it in. Part of me knew that if I said it aloud, someone would stop me, or worse, let me go and never expect to see me again. The forest was different that morning. Still. Suspended. As if it was holding its breath. The usual sounds of chirping, the breeze rustling the leaves, gone. Not even the crunch of my boots felt natural. Every step felt like an echo. Then I heard it. Silence. Not just the absence of birdsong. A vacuum of sound. I checked the compass and GPS. Both were dead. I kept moving. It didn't take long to find the mouth of the cave. It yawned open beneath a slanted cliff, hidden behind a curtain of moss and dead vines. The rocks around it were slick, blackened, and strangely warm to the touch. The air that seeped out wasn't cool like a cave should be, it was moist and warm, like breath. Inside, it was dark. A kind of dark that swallowed light instead of resisting it. I stepped in. Instantly, the forest felt like it disappeared behind me. Like I'd crossed a threshold into something ancient and wrong. The walls were close, jagged, alive with moisture. My flashlight flickered. Once. Twice. Then steadied. I kept going. The tunnel split in 2. One side dipped downward. The other twisted left. I chose the downward slope. Always downward. That's where I found the carvings. Not graffiti. Not primitive cave art. Symbols etched in spirals and circles, identical to those I'd seen on the old ranger maps. And in the center of one wall, a figure. A tall, thin shape with no face. Arms too long. Branch-like fingers. Beneath it, etched in crude, clumsy lines. We fed it. We thought it would sleep forever. I stumbled back, heart pounding. There were bones on the floor. Some old, gray and brittle. Some fresher. Too fresh. Then the sound started. A low, dragging whisper. Like something crawling over stone. My flashlight flickered again. Something was coming. I turned and ran. Every tunnel felt unfamiliar. Like the cave had shifted behind me. The walls felt narrower, closing in. My light blinked out entirely, and I screamed, fumbling forward, scraping my arms and shoulders against rock. Then, finally, light. I burst out of the cave and collapsed on the mossy ground outside, gasping for breath. The sunlight was harsh, blinding. I didn't care. The birds were singing again. I staggered back to the lodge, bloody, bruised, barely able to stand. Miles saw me and didn't say a word. Just handed me a bottle of water and sat beside me. "You went in," he said quietly. I nodded. "It's waking up," I told him. He didn't act surprised. "We've always known. The rules, they weren't to keep you safe. They were to keep it asleep. Keep the patterns unbroken. The rituals consistent." "Rituals?" He sighed. "You really thought Cabin 6 was empty for no reason? That checking it was just tradition? That the 11:17 curfew was random?" My mouth went dry. "They're offerings," he said. "Steps in a dance. A routine the forest needs us to follow. Or what? Or it remembers. And it hungers." That night, Rule 5 came for me. Patrol Cabin 6 every night, even if no one's assigned there. I'd missed a night. Just one. The night I went to the cave. I tried to make up for it. I grabbed my flashlight and hiked out through the woods. The trees were too still. My every step echoed strangely in the air, like the ground itself was hollow. Cabin 6 looked the same from the outside. But when I opened the door, the crib was full. A child. Pale. Motionless. Sitting upright, eyes open. Dressed in a little blue uniform. One of the children from Rule 6. I stepped back. My flashlight flickered. The child smiled. Not a warm smile. A knowing smile. Then it whispered, in a voice too deep for something that small. "You broke the rules." I ran. That night, I started writing my own version of the rules. Not the ones in the book. The ones behind the rules. What each step really meant. What each action fed. There were more than 7. There were dozens. Hidden steps. Unwritten agreements. Every ranger before me had been playing a part in something ancient, whether they knew it or not. And now, with me, the routine was broken. The watchers were moving. The cave was breathing. And the forest was waking up. The following morning, I found the supervisor waiting outside my cabin. He wasn't angry. He looked afraid. He didn't ask me why I missed my patrol of Cabin 6. He didn't mention the child in blue. Instead, he handed me a manila envelope, sealed and water-stained, marked with one word in red ink. Replacement. I didn't understand at first. "You'll be escorting him," the supervisor said flatly. "Show him the trails. Read him the rules. Make sure he survives." Miles was standing behind him, his jaw clenched, his eyes locked on mine. There was something unspoken between us, and I couldn't quite name it. Fear, guilt, or maybe resignation. The replacement ranger arrived just after lunch. His name was Noah. Mid-20s. Eager. Green. Exactly like I had been. He smiled when we shook hands. "Excited to be out here. Place is beautiful." I wanted to warn him. To tell him to turn around, get back in his car, and leave before the forest noticed him. But something in me knew it wouldn't matter. Once Ashwood had your name, it didn't forget. We spent the day touring the trails. He asked about wildlife, search and rescue procedures, and when the busiest season was. I gave him half-truths, deflecting anything that came close to the darkness coiling beneath the surface. When dusk fell, I brought him to the lodge and handed him the rulebook. His smile faltered as he read it. "What is this?" he asked. A joke. I shook my head slowly. They're real, I said. All of them. He looked at me like I was crazy. I didn't blame him. I had once looked the same way. That night, I stayed awake again. Watching. Listening. I didn't trust the dark anymore. It shifted too much. Whispered too loud. At exactly 11:17 p.m., I heard it again. The whistling. Soft and slow. I closed my eyes. But this time, it didn't stop. I clenched my jaw, heart thundering in my ears. Still, the tune went on. Louder. Closer. Then, a knock. Sharp. Deliberate. I opened my eyes. The window was fogged. But in the center of it, drawn with a finger, was a smiley face. I backed away, shaking. From the hallway, I heard footsteps. Then a voice. Ethan. Rule 3. Do not acknowledge voices calling your name near the hollow. But I wasn't near the hollow. The voice came again. Closer. Ethan, it's me. Open up. It sounded like Noah. I stepped toward the door and placed my hand on the knob. Then stopped. There was a feeling, wrongness, leaking through the wood. Noah had no reason to be at my cabin. I backed away slowly. Minutes passed. Then hours. The next morning, when I stepped outside, there were no footprints in the frost-covered grass. No sign anyone had come. When I found Noah, he was fine. He had slept like a baby. It wasn't him at my door. 3 days later, another ranger went missing. Jessica. She had been assigned to check the eastern perimeter trail, the one nearest to the cave. Her radio went silent at 2:14 a.m. They found her boot lodged between two rocks. Her body was never recovered. But her voice was. The next night, it called out from the hollow. Help me, it's cold down here. Noah heard it too. He turned to me, eyes wide. That's her. No, I whispered. It's not. But he didn't believe me. That's when I realized the rules weren't enough anymore. The forest was changing. It wasn't just luring people into traps. It was hunting. I went to Miles that night. Demanded answers. Real ones. He hesitated, then poured 2 glasses of something strong and brown. We've been feeding it for years, he said. Long before us. Long before the service turned this into a park. What is it? Something old. Something buried. He looked at me grimly. The forest is a mouth. The rules are the teeth. They keep the shape of things. But the second those teeth loosen. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. I remembered the message on the cave wall. We fed it. We thought it would sleep forever. What happens if it wakes up? I asked. Miles looked away. The children in blue come first, he said. Then the water changes. Then the trees start whispering secrets no human was ever meant to hear. Then what? Then the watcher comes down from the trees. The next day, we found cabin's access door wide open. The crib was empty. A set of tiny wet footprints led from the threshold and disappeared into the woods. I knew what that meant. Something had gotten out. That night, Rule 6 broke itself. Never speak to the children in blue. But they spoke to me. I heard them in the woods outside my window. Giggling. Running. When I peeked out, I saw them. 3 of them. Pale. Soaked. Wearing blue uniforms from another era. Button jackets and old boots. One of them looked right at me. You're not following the rules, he said. Then they were gone. I decided I couldn't do it anymore. I packed a bag and told Miles I was leaving. He didn't try to stop me. Just remember, he said, you might leave Ashwood, but Ashwood might not leave you. I got in my truck, drove down the winding road, and didn't look back. Not until I reached the edge of the forest. And then, my phone rang. No service. No number. Just the word. Watcher. I dropped the phone and floored the gas. The farther I got, the more things blurred. Reality stuttered. Landmarks were wrong. Time felt elastic. And then, black water. On the road. stretching across the pavement like a lake had spilled from the woods. I slammed the brakes. In the rearview mirror, I saw them. The children. Standing in the middle of the road behind me. Smiling. And above them, asterisk asterisk in the trees asterisk asterisk, a shape. Tall. Watching. The Watcher. I turned around. Drove back toward the park. Ashwood had claimed me. And I knew, in that moment, I'd never escape. Now, I'm back in the ranger station. Noah's gone. Miles won't speak to anyone. And the supervisor has locked himself in the cellar with nothing but a lantern and a shotgun. The lake is black again. The hollow is singing. And the rules are changing. One more line appeared in the notebook today. Written in fresh ink. 9. When the forest whispers your name, don't listen. It already knows you. Asterisk asterisk. It's been 4 days since I tried to leave Ashwood National Park. 4 days since the road dissolved into a river of black water and a towering shape watched me from the trees. I returned to the ranger lodge like a prisoner who had tried to escape and failed, only now the prison guards had changed. Noah's bunk was still untouched. His toothbrush sat dry in its holder. His boots were gone, but his jacket hung on a chair like he'd just stepped out for a moment. But I knew better. He didn't leave. He was taken. I could still hear his voice in the woods at night. Sometimes whispering. Sometimes screaming. But never close enough to be found. I stopped writing in the logbooks. What was the point? Every truth I tried to record seemed to fade from the pages by morning. Even the supervisor stopped pretending we were running a park anymore. He hadn't emerged from the cellar since the lake turned black. Every morning, I left food by the door. Every night, it disappeared. Miles had changed, too. He barely slept, barely spoke. I'd find him in strange places, once crouched behind the fire lookout tower, muttering numbers under his breath, repeating them like a prayer. 1117, 6, 6, 1117. He told me once, when he still made sense, that numbers hold the park together. The rules are just coordinates, he said. Follow them long enough, and you can map the shape of the thing underneath. I didn't understand then. Now, I think I'm starting to. The 9th rule appeared yesterday. A warning to ignore the forest if it whispered your name. Last night, it called to me again. Not like before. This time, it wasn't in someone else's voice. It was mine. From the hollow. Perfect. Precise. Mimicking every inflection like a mirror echoing upward from a bottomless pit. Ethan. Come down. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't blink. It called for 3 hours. Then silence. This morning, I found a photo pinned to the lodge door. It was taken from a high vantage point. Maybe a tree, maybe something else. It showed me, sleeping in my bunk. I hadn't slept in days. I don't know what scares me more, that something watched me, or that something made me sleep. I tried burning the rulebook. I'd had enough. Enough of the growing pages, the shifting ink, the invisible author that kept adding to it. I lit a match, dropped it into the notebook, and watched the flame dance up the spine. And then, the fire snuffed itself out. No smoke. Just a soft hissing sound, like someone shushing me from the trees. When I opened the book again, a new line had appeared. 10. Do not attempt to destroy the rules. They remember. Asterisk asterisk. I fell to my knees, gripping my hair, nearly sobbing. I was losing control. Not just of the situation. Of myself. That night, the trees around the lodge shifted. I don't know how to explain it exactly. They didn't move, not physically, but they relocated, subtly rearranged themselves. The forest line crept closer. The treetops leaned inward. The sky felt tighter, smaller. I saw footprints circling the lodge. Tiny ones. Dozens of them. Children in blue. I didn't hear them laugh this time. I didn't hear them speak. But I felt them. Watching from the dark. I sealed every door. Boarded the windows. Sat on the floor with the rulebook in my lap and a flashlight shaking in my hand. At 2 a.m., the wind stopped. And then came the knock. Not at the door. From inside the walls. Soft. Slow. Repeating. It moved, first near the fireplace, then under the floor, then beside my bed. I held my breath as the rulebook slid from my lap, and turned a page by itself. I stared at the new line written there. 11. You are not alone in your skin. Asterisk asterisk. I dropped the book. What the hell did that mean? I rushed to the bathroom mirror. I looked pale, gaunt, exhausted. But something was wrong. The reflection blinked too slowly. The mouth twitched when I wasn't moving. I raised my hand. My reflection hesitated, then followed. I whispered to it. Who are you? It smiled. And I didn't. The next morning, Miles was gone. Not missing, just gone. No footprints. No blood. No note. His bunk was cold, and his clothes were folded neatly on top of it. But his knife lay on the floor, blade still stained with something dark. I followed a trail into the woods, a line of shredded leaves and disturbed soil like something had slithered out of the station. I ended up near the cave. It looked different now. Bigger. As if it had grown. The same symbols lined the rocks, but more of them now. New ones. Etched in fresh blood. Some were human-sized. Some weren't. I didn't go in. But the air that poured out of it now, it didn't smell like soil or stone. It smelled like me. I went back to the cellar, back to the supervisor's door, and banged until my knuckles bled. Finally, the bolt turned. Slowly. The door creaked open. He looked older. Grayer. Like decades had passed in days. They've chosen you, he said. Who? He stepped aside and pointed toward the far wall. There, drawn in charcoal and ash, was a circle of faces. All of them mine. Screaming. Melting. Repeating. You broke too many rules, he said. You saw too much. The forest isn't protecting itself anymore. It's adopting you. I backed away. I'm not staying here. He laughed softly. You think staying is a choice? He pulled something from behind his back. A knife. Not to threaten me, but to give to me. You'll need this, he said. Soon. Then he shut the door again. I haven't seen him since. That night, the stars disappeared. Not behind clouds. They just blinked out. One by one. And in their place, tiny blue lights filled the sky, like eyes. And I heard it again. The whistling. This time, inside my room. I shut my eyes, trembling. It grew louder. Closer. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, the rulebook was gone. In its place, a scrap of paper. 12. You belong to the forest now. Asterisk asterisk. I think the forest is remaking me. Not just watching. Not just hunting. But replacing. Every time I look in the mirror now, I see less of myself. My eyes are darker. My smile too wide. My hands, thinner. Longer. Like the Watchers. Like the thing I saw in the trees that night. Am I becoming it? Or has it always been inside me, waiting? The forest speaks in patterns. The rules are just requests now. Guidelines for the inevitable. And I feel it. The cave calling. The hollow breathing. The lake watching. And in my dreams, dozens of children in blue, standing in a circle around me, whispering my name in reverse. Natty. Over and over. Smiling. Waiting. I don't know if anyone will read this. I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow. But if you ever find this place, if you ever see the trail sign for Ashwood National Park, asterisk asterisk turn around. Asterisk asterisk. Don't stop. Don't hike. Don't breathe its air. Because once the forest knows your name, it never gives it back. I woke up to the smell of pine needles and sulfur. Not in my bunk. Not in the ranger lodge. But somewhere deeper. Somewhere I'd never seen on any map. The trees here were taller, thicker, and blackened near the base. Not burnt, but charred in a way that suggested internal decay, like the bark itself was rotting from the inside. Above me, the sky was bleeding, a dull red hue dripping between jagged branches like dusk was melting. I didn't remember walking here. My boots were wet. My knife was gone. But clutched in my hand, wrinkled and soaked with sweat, was a page torn from the rulebook. Only 2 words. Final trial. I tried to retrace my steps, but the ground shifted behind me as I moved. Footprints vanished seconds after I made them, swallowed by roots that twisted and knotted like veins in a corpse. I called out. No answer. Not even an echo. Just silence. That dense, unnatural kind of silence that pulses in your ears and makes you question if you're really alone. Then, faintly, a voice. It was my mother's. Ethan, you're almost home. I froze. My mother had been dead for 10 years. The forest was lying again, trying to trick me. But the worst part wasn't hearing her voice. It was that part of me wanted to follow it. After what felt like hours, I stumbled into a clearing. A massive circle, perfectly symmetrical, bordered by 7 stones, each one engraved with a symbol I recognized from the rulebook. The wind changed. And then I saw them. All 7 rules, carved into the trees surrounding the circle. But something was wrong. They weren't instructions anymore. They were challenges. And beneath each, a crude wooden effigy. Of me. Some were burning. Some were torn apart. One was impaled through the chest with my own missing knife. At the center of the circle stood a tall, thin figure, draped in moss and bones. The Watcher. It didn't move. Didn't breathe. But somehow, I knew it had been waiting. Not just for me, but for this moment. I stepped forward, heart pounding, and the wind stopped completely. The Watcher raised one long finger and pointed to the first rule, ****, do not enter the woods after dark. The forest groaned. The sun blinked out. And I was plunged into total blackness. Something moved past me. Fast. Slithering. Laughing. Then light again. A test. I'd failed the first. Rule 2. Never look directly at the lake after midnight. The sky twisted. The trees fell away. And I was standing at the edge of the black lake again, alone. This time, it pulled me in. My body didn't resist. It wanted to drown. But right before my lungs burst, I felt hands, cold and many, drag me back to shore. Another test. Another failure. Each rule now wasn't meant to protect me. It was meant to break me. By the 4th rule, I was bleeding. Not from wounds, but from memory. Every time I blinked, I lost something. My name. My home. My childhood. They peeled away like layers of skin. I tried to scream. But my voice didn't belong to me anymore. It echoed like someone else was using it. Then I saw the children again. But this time, they were closer. Surrounding the circle. Staring with empty eyes and torn smiles. One by one, they lifted their fingers and pointed at me. And the Watcher began to move. It stepped into the circle like a marionette pulled by strings, limbs cracking, bones snapping into place. It didn't speak with a mouth. It spoke through the trees, through the ground, through the bones buried beneath my feet. You were chosen before you were born, it said. Before you had a name. Before there were rules. I backed away, but the circle closed in. Every step I took, the stones burned brighter. The rules are not laws, it continued. They are promises. And you have broken every one. I dropped to my knees. I didn't know. I didn't mean to. You believed. And that was enough. Suddenly, the 7th stone cracked down the middle. A blinding light spilled out, and with it came screams. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Each one a soul swallowed by this place. Each one a ranger before me. I saw Noah. I saw Miles. I saw myself. Over and over, dying in different ways. Burned. Drowned. Hollowed out. There were so many versions of me. All ending in the same scream. You have one choice left, the Watcher said. It raised its hand. In its palm, the knife. The one from the cellar. From the supervisor. Blood-stained. Familiar. Take your place, it whispered. I stared at the blade. Something inside me wanted to. Something old. Something not mine. But something strong. My hands moved on their own. I grabbed the knife. And the world shattered. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the ranger lodge. Morning sunlight spilled across the floor. The rulebook sat on the table. Closed. I opened it with trembling fingers. The pages were empty. All except one. At the center, written in deep red ink. The final rule: you are the new watcher. I stared at it for what felt like hours. Then I stood, walked to the mirror, and understood. The reflection smiled before I did. Its eyes weren't mine. Not anymore. But they looked satisfied. That was 3 days ago. Since then, I haven't eaten. Haven't slept. But I feel strong. The trees obey me now. The lake clears when I look into it. The children bow when I pass. I leave the rules outside the lodge each morning. Fresh copies. Hoping the next ranger will follow them. Knowing they won't. Because the forest doesn't want survivors. It wants hosts. And I was just the latest chapter. But the story never ends. The call came in just before dawn. A soft ring on a dusty, outdated landline. I didn't recognize the voice on the other end. Young, eager, nervous. A new ranger. Hey, I just arrived. No one's here. I found this cabin, but it looks abandoned. There's a book on the table with my name on it, and these weird rules. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because I wasn't sure if I was still Ethan anymore. Or just the forest wearing his skin. The boy spoke again. Is this some kind of hazing thing? The line crackled. A whisper echoed behind him on the receiver. Don't break the rules. Then it went dead. His name was Benji Ortiz. 22. Fresh out of academy. Transferred from Arizona after a wildfire shut down his last park. Bright eyes, steady hands, and a deep respect for nature. Poor kid never stood a chance. I watched him from the trees as he settled into the lodge. Just like I had. He found the rulebook within the hour. He read each rule aloud. I could tell he thought it was a joke. Until the sun set, and the voices began. Benji's first mistake was curiosity. He broke Rule 4 on the very first night. Do not follow the sound of crying past 2 a.m. He heard it, just like I once did. That soft, desperate weeping. A little girl in the woods. He grabbed his flashlight and followed it, muttering to himself. He didn't know the crying always sounds close, but never is. By the time he reached the clearing, the crying had stopped. The wind shifted, and in front of him stood a small girl with tangled black hair, holding something behind her back. Benji knelt. Hey, are you okay? Are you lost? She didn't answer. She just smiled. Then she held out what she'd been hiding. A tooth. Not hers. His. He screamed, stumbled back, and ran until he collapsed at the edge of the lake. Rule 2. He looked. He stared too long. And the lake stared back. Something inside moved. Slowly. With purpose. He should have drowned. But something intervened. I did. I don't know why. Some buried fragment of who I was. Some whisper of guilt. I pulled him from the water before the arms could drag him down. Left him on the lodge steps, coughing up blood and teeth. He never saw me. But I saw him. The way he shook. The way he whispered, I just want to go home. Too late. The moment he entered the forest, he became part of its story. And stories don't like to be abandoned. The next morning, he tried to leave. Packed a bag. Got into the truck. Radioed dispatch. Nothing worked. The road was gone again, replaced with fog and trees that weren't there the day before. He drove for hours in circles before the fuel ran out. He screamed into the empty air, begging to be released. The forest didn't care. It just watched. It's always watching. Just like me now. That night, Benji burned the rulebook. Thought it would change something. But the rules aren't paper and ink. They're etched into the soil. Into every root. Every shadow. By burning the book, he only woke it up. The watcher stirred. So did the children. So did I. He started hearing things. A woman whispering in his ear as he slept. A voice that sounded like his late grandmother humming in the walls. He boarded the windows, covered every mirror, stayed awake for 72 hours straight. And still, the forest found ways in. Through dreams. Through the cracks in reality. He saw flashes of me in the glass, except it wasn't me anymore. Just a shape with my face and his eyes. The forest was stitching us together. On the fourth night, the animals came. But not the normal ones. These were larger. Hungrier. Their eyes glowed red, and their mouths moved like they were trying to speak. Benji set traps, armed himself, even made it to the ranger station's gun locker. But every bullet turned to ash in his hands. The forest had learned. Adapted. It wouldn't be undone by human weapons. It needed obedience. It needed another successor. He found the cellar 2 days later, buried beneath a pile of rotting wood and overgrown vines. Same as I did. Same as they all do. Inside, the knife. The ledger. The bones. He didn't scream. He just stood there for hours, staring, reading every name etched into the walls. Miles. Noah. Ethan. And beneath them all, one more name slowly appearing, letter by letter. Benji. He ran. But the forest ran faster. It doesn't need feet to chase you. It doesn't need claws to tear your sanity apart. It just whispers the right things. It shows you what you've lost. It makes you feel seen. By the time he reached the edge of the boundary, the invisible wall of trees that keeps this place sealed, he was already gone. Not physically. Spiritually. He dropped to his knees and laughed. I get it now, he said. Then he crawled into the hollow of a dead tree and disappeared. I haven't seen him since. But I know he's still here. Becoming part of it. Like I did. The forest takes its time with some. Warps them slowly. Gently. Until one morning, they wake up and realize they're not afraid anymore. Because fear requires hope. And there is none here. Only rules. And even those are changing. I used to think I was the watcher now. But something else watches me. Something deeper. Something older than the rules. Older than the forest itself. And it's waking up. The storm began at midnight. No thunder. No lightning. Just wind, moaning like a chorus of the dead through the trees, and a smell in the air like rotting meat soaked in burnt sugar. I didn't know if it was real or if the forest was just showing me another illusion. The longer I stayed here, the more the line between memory and nightmare blurred. But this time, something was different. The trees leaned inward. The wind carried whispers in dozens of voices, asterisk asterisk, all of them mine asterisk asterisk. And somewhere in the dark, something was digging its way up from beneath the roots. The Watcher used to be the worst thing here. That's what I believed for years. The one who enforced the rules, punished the rule breakers, fed on fear. But now I know, it's not the origin. It's just the gatekeeper. There's something deeper. Older than the rules. Older than this forest. A hunger that predates memory. Something buried. And now, it's clawing toward the surface. The rules were never made to protect us from the forest. They were meant to keep it asleep. Each rule, a seal. Each broken rule, a crack in the prison. And too many have been broken now. I hear it breathing when the wind stops. I feel it dreaming when I close my eyes. Benji's disappearance was the last fracture. The final tremor. Now the real horror begins. I found him again, or what was left of him. Not in body, but in echo. In the cave beneath the lake. A place you're never meant to find, unless the forest wants you to. It opened for me, roots twisting apart, soil bleeding as it yawned wide. Inside was a tunnel. Wet. Breathing. I walked for what felt like hours. The air grew warmer with every step. Too warm. Like the inside of something alive. And then I saw him. Naked. Pale. Eyes black and glassy. But smiling. Benji stood at the altar of bones, whispering to the stone beneath his feet. His voice layered with others. Some ancient. Some recent. Some were mine. He turned to me and said, "It's almost time." I asked him, "Time for what?" And he replied, "For the forest to remember what it really is." That night, I returned to the lodge and found the rulebook rewritten. The 7 rules were gone. In their place were new ones, carved into the walls in dried blood. And they didn't protect. They welcomed. 1. Let it in when it knocks. 2. Speak its name when the wind dies. 3. Feed it something living before dawn. 4. Leave your skin at the altar. 5. Don't forget your name, it will try to take it. 6. Drink the black water only when it's watching. 7. Become what you fear the most. I tried to rip them down, clawed at the wood until my nails cracked, but the carvings kept returning, deeper, sharper. The lodge was no longer shelter. It was the temple, and I was its high priest. Every hour since, I've watched the forest change. The trees no longer sway with the wind, they sway with breath. The animals are vanishing, replaced by shapes made of smoke and bone. And the stars don't come out anymore. Just that pulsing red eye above the lake, blinking every night at 3:33 a.m. Like it's counting down. On the 4th night after Benji's transformation, I found the mirror in the cabin cracked in 7 places. My reflection stared back. But it was smiling. I wasn't. It whispered, "Your shift is over. The forest will now take it from here." I ran. Past the totems. Past the twisted trees. Past the cries of the children who were never born. Back to the trailhead where this all began. And I saw it. The road the one that was always missing. This time it was there. Stretching out into fogless, moonlit peace. A way out. But the moment I stepped onto it, my skin burned. My blood screamed. Because I wasn't me anymore. Not fully. The forest had taken too much. And I realized, this road wasn't escape. It was bait. A false exit for those who'd already been claimed. A trap to pull others in. Like Benji. Like me. I turned around. Faced the forest. And said the name I wasn't supposed to know. The one buried beneath all the rules. The true name of the thing that sleeps below the lake. The one that stitched this reality together. The one that fed on guilt, fear, broken vows. Its name was redacted. I can't write it here. It doesn't translate into words. It's a scream woven with weeping. But when I said it aloud, the forest answered. The trees leaned back. The wind stopped. And a hole opened in the sky. Now I wait. I don't sleep anymore. I don't eat. I just sit at the edge of the lake, watching the surface churn with something black and vast. The watcher no longer comes. Because even he fears what's rising. And tomorrow the forest will take another. Someone else will arrive. And the rules will change again. Only this time. There will be no rules. Only hunger. Only the end. I woke up in the ranger cabin, though I don't remember falling asleep. The window was shattered. Dirt was piled inside like something had been crawling through it, not out of it. My boots were muddy. My shirt was torn. And on the floor, written in what I hoped was mud, was a single word. Welcome. Not, get out. Not, run. Just that. Welcome. I wasn't just inside the forest anymore. The forest was inside me. Daylight no longer meant safety. The sun was just a dull orange smear behind the trees, casting shadows that twitched on their own. My compass spun constantly. The trees had rearranged themselves again. I couldn't find the old trails, not even the fire tower. But the worst part was this. My radio worked again. Except no one spoke like a person anymore. I kept hearing the same message every hour on the hour, an automated broadcast that couldn't be shut off. Attention all personnel. Rule compliance failure detected. Subject 04 has become the new key. Do not engage. Observe only. Worship silently. Worship. What the hell had I become? That night, I bled from my eyes. No pain. Just black rivulets running down my cheeks like tears made of ink. The mirror no longer reflected me, it showed the lake. Always the lake. Even if I turned the mirror toward the wall, the lake stayed there. Rippling. Watching. I finally understood what Benji meant when he said, "The forest remembers." Because it remembered me. And it was preparing me for something. The next morning, I found a visitor. Not a hiker. Not a tourist. A girl, maybe 9 or 10, standing at the edge of the lake barefoot, wearing a white dress. Her eyes were pure white, no irises. No pupils. I didn't hear her arrive. She didn't seem scared. She looked expectant. When I asked her name, she replied, "I am the reminder." I asked, "Reminder of what?" She pointed to the lake. "Of what you left behind. Of what's still down there." And then she began to sing. A song I recognized immediately. It was my mother's lullaby. I hadn't heard it since I was 5. She vanished before I could speak again. Only her footprints remained, smoldering slightly in the soil. That night, the final rule appeared. Not in a book. Not carved on walls. It was branded into my chest, seared in glowing letters, right over my heart. Rule 8. Give yourself willingly before the last moonrise. Or be devoured piece by piece. Asterisk asterisk. There had never been an 8th rule. The number was sacred here. 7 rules. 7 trees. 7 stones around the lake. But now the system had broken. The forest was hungry for something more. For something human. I saw what happens when you refuse. I saw Sarah. The ranger who trained me, the one who vanished a year ago. She came crawling out of the brush, skin sloughing off like wet paper, eyes gone, fingers worn down to cracked bone. And she whispered. I said no. She collapsed into dust. And in that dust, the forest wrote 2 words with her ash. Your turn. It was then I understood. Asterisk asterisk, I was the offering. Asterisk asterisk. The forest didn't want a ranger. It wanted a guardian of its hunger. Someone who'd obey, resist, break, and finally submit. The rules weren't to be followed forever. They were a countdown. Each rule broken, each truth ignored, every scream swallowed, was a step closer to becoming its vessel. I walked to the center of the lake at dusk. There's an island you can't see unless it's ready for you. Tonight, it showed itself. The water parted, not like Moses in the Bible, but like something bigger had breathed beneath it. The island rose. A mass of bone and soil, twisted trees and hundreds of hands fused into the ground, reaching upward. Each hand had a name carved into it. All past rangers. All previous offerings. I didn't see Benji's name. I saw his face. It was carved into the trunk of the central tree, mouth open wide, eyes shut tight, like he was screaming in slow motion forever. He wasn't just taken. He had become part of the forest's body. The final voice came as the last sun dipped below the horizon. A soundless whisper that filled my skull. Will you serve or will you feed? I didn't answer. I knelt at the base of the tree, placed my badge at its roots, and I whispered, I accept. The bark split. Blood spilled. The sky went black. And when I woke again, I was in the fire tower. Clean uniform. No wounds. Radio silent. The forest looked peaceful. But now I see it all. The illusion. The veil. The constant low-frequency hum that keeps the new ones asleep. Because now, I'm the watcher. And my job is to make sure the new ranger follows all 7 rules. Until they don't. Until the forest is ready again. It's been exactly 1 month since I became the watcher. The others don't know what I am now. They think I'm just another park ranger, maybe a little more serious, a little more withdrawn. They don't ask why I never leave the park boundaries. They don't ask why I only patrol at night. But I see it all. I see them, the new recruits, wide-eyed and eager. And I see it, the forest, alive and waiting. Always waiting. I monitor them closely, like I was once monitored. I listen to their radios, watch how they follow the rules, or how they slowly begin to question them. I record their voices when they start to hear the humming at 3:33 a.m. I mark the days when the trees move behind them and they don't notice. There are 7 rules, yes. But the real game is how long it takes before one of them breaks. Because when they do, the forest begins to feed again. And I have to help it. It's my job now. The newest ranger is a young woman named Emily. Smart, strong, skeptical. She reminds me of myself before the forest opened its mouth. On her first day, she laughed when I handed her the small, leather-bound field manual with the 7 rules inside. "What is this, a creepy onboarding ritual?" she joked. I smiled and nodded. She doesn't know yet. But she will. And the forest is already taking an interest in her. I saw the sign 2 nights ago. A fox approached her patrol path, but instead of running, it spoke her name in a voice that mimicked her dead brother's. She froze, confused, shaken, and then fled the area without reporting it. That's Rule 2. Never respond to anything calling your name after dark. She failed it. The countdown has begun. Last night, I saw her near the old fire pit, whispering to something in the trees. Not someone, something ***. I recognized the sound she was repeating. The same lullaby the little girl by the lake once sang to me. The same song I hadn't heard since childhood. Now Emily was humming it under her breath, her fingers twitching like they were tracing invisible symbols in the air. She doesn't remember singing. But the forest does. And I do. That's the cruelest part of this curse. You don't become the forest's watcher by dying. You become it by remembering. By remembering every step you took wrong, every moment you questioned the rules, every scream you didn't let out. Benji couldn't carry the weight of memory. Neither could Sarah. But I can. Because I finally understand the last truth. The forest isn't evil. It's hungry. It doesn't hate you. It wants you to belong. And the only way to belong is to forget who you were. But I'm still holding on. Barely. I still remember my real name, my sister's voice, the way my father held a map upside down whenever we went camping. I still feel the ache in my chest when I remember the first time I saw the lake and thought, this place is beautiful. I still remember that I was once just a guy trying to start a new job. Now I'm something else entirely. But maybe I can stop it from happening to her. Maybe I can break the cycle. Last night, I broke Rule 6. Don't interfere with the choices of others. I followed Emily into the northern grove, the one the trees bend away from, where the moss never dries and the air buzzes like wet wires. She had a knife. She was whispering, if I give it blood, maybe it'll stop watching me. She had already cut her palm open. I stepped forward. And for the first time since I became the watcher, I said something honest. Emily, I whispered, don't feed it. It remembers what you give. Her eyes snapped toward me. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She smiled. You broke the rule, she said. Then she turned and ran into the trees. I chased after her, but the grove folded closed behind her, bark twisting into walls, branches tangling like barbed wire. I lost her. This morning, her cabin is empty. All that remains is her uniform neatly folded on the bed, her name tag resting on top, and the manual, the one with the 7 rules. Only now there are 8. The new one reads, Rule 8, do not follow her. Below it, in her handwriting, a message. I remember now. She's part of it. Or she's fighting it. Maybe both. But either way, I'm not the only one anymore. That changes things. Because if there's more than one watcher, maybe there's a way to reverse the infection. Maybe there's a way to rewrite the rules. Maybe we don't have to be feeding the forest anymore. Maybe we can turn it against itself. Or maybe that's what it wants us to think. So now I wait. I still climb the fire tower each night. I still patrol the trails, still warn the new recruits. I still whisper the rules into my broken radio, knowing someone out there might be listening. But this time, I'm not just a watcher. I'm a witness. And if Emily remembers, maybe others will too. Maybe you will. So if you ever visit this park, if you ever feel the trees watching, or hear a voice call your name from the shadows, ***, remember this ***. Do not follow the trail of ash. Do not look into the lake's reflection. And above all, follow the rules. Even if you don't believe in them. Because belief isn't required out here. Only obedience.